Hello, Year 10. Welcome to another week of business, week 12 of Embrook School Lockdown Business Studies. Let's have a look at what we're doing today. We are doing a topic called ethics. Now, usually we do ethics in a really discussion based over a few lessons, but we're going to come back to it when we get back to school. But it's good to introduce it now to get us thinking. So, ethics is about doing what's morally correct or not. Business ethics is doing what's morally correct in a business situation. And so we've got a few things here that we can, Milo, a few things here that we can look at about where ethical decisions come from. So we've got production there. We can think about how much waste it produces. What does it do with that waste? Is it pumping up waste into the sky? What's that called? Like pollution, such through that. So that's an issue of production. We've got the suppliers of how do we treat them and why? Do we get fair trade? Do we think about the animal welfare? Kind of, are we going to buy from someone we know is a bit dodgy or because it's cheap? You think about the horse meat scandal from a few years ago. People were putting pressure on the suppliers to provide cheap meat, and the suppliers are like, well, this kind of looks like beef, and chucked all the horses along the way. So it goes from that first supplier through to our, uh, you know, kitchen dinner. Kitchen dinner. We've got the workers. How do we treat them? What do we pay them? Do we look after them? What do we do with them? We've got the customers. Do we lie to them? Do we give them what they want? Do we care about them? Also, like, are we going to sell to countries that have got really poor human rights? Are we going to go over to North Korea and say, well, actually, we'll probably sell you some stuff? Is that ethical? We're looking at our competitors of how far are we going to go to win? Are we going to undercut them? Are we going to treat them unfairly? Are we going to spread lies about them? How ethical are we going to be there? We've got the products there. Are we going to, think about McDonald's. They get a lot of hassle for helping the obesity crisis. Is that an ethical consideration that McDonald's should have, or is the emphasis going to be on the customer to make that choice? We've got the environment, litter and such, and then like local communities of, should we care about the local community? If we're Tesco's and we're going to build a big shop, should we care if all the little shops around have to close down? So when we think about business ethics, we think about all these different things, and it's an absolutely huge topic that in year 13 we spend months on. We're going to do a week to introduce it now, and we'll come back to it when we're back in school. Now, most companies kind of fit between this barometer of either having really high ethical standards or really low ethical standards. And some may use it as a marketing tool. They might say, hey, we're really ethical, but actually they're not. They're just using it to make us think that they are so that we will buy their product. So at the top end here, we've got things like Marks and Spencer, Starbucks, and the Cooperative Bank. So Starbucks only use fair trade coffee beans. The Cooperative Bank only use fair trade and organic produce. I think Marks and Spencer's try to look after the people that make the clothes. So try to pay them fair wages and get them from proper factories. Down to low ethical standards, such as Ryanair, who once, I think, tried to look into whether people could stand on flights rather than be strapped in. They didn't think it would matter if you're wearing a seatbelt or not. And they make staff bring in their own pens to save money. So we've got this huge, and you could probably think of some more. Now, a couple of examples of these ethical decisions having real impact was a factory in Bangladesh that made clothes for Primark. And under the pressure of creating more and more clothes cheaply, they built extra floors onto the factory without any kind of standards towards health and safety, and it collapsed and killed loads of people. It was a really horrific incident, but it goes to show about that business thinking of, well, we're going to cut costs here, but there's that extra cost at the end. Another one here we've got about animal testing for cosmetics. I think, is that morally correct? Is that the right thing to do? Should animals have to suffer so that my eyebrows are on fleek? Is that, I don't know if that's the right term. And the last one here, more close to home, that Amazon, this was from a couple of years ago, but Amazon warehouse workers skipped their bathroom breaks to keep their jobs. They were saying that people were urinating into bottles because they didn't want to stop that time to go and collect the next item from the shelf ready to complete your order. And Amazon gave you like 3 strikes and then you were out if you missed your time deadline. So people were under pressure not to go to the toilet, otherwise they'd lose their jobs. Is that ethical? Is that morally correct? Is that the right thing to do? So these are the issues that we need to face of looking at, is that the correct thing to do? And at some point we're going to make a decision that's bad in the because you think it's in the best interest of the company, but it might be bad for people or animals or the pollution. But we need to judge each decision kind of on its own merit. Now, I want you to do two things today. The first one is a couple of exam questions to give that practice up. You did so well last week in the 6 markers. Honestly, they're the best I've ever seen. Some of the biggest names in the British high street use Indian sweatshops which pay poverty wages and break labour laws to keep costs to a bare minimum, according to a new report. Marks and Spencers, Next, Monsoon, Debenhams, Dorothy Perkins and Miss Selfridge are all named as having used factories which exploit their workers. So question number 1, explain why Debenhams buying products from a factory in the developing world is an ethical issue. Think back to what that definition was. Skip back in the video if you want. And question 2, 6 marker. Do you think companies like Debenhams should purchase items from factories in developing countries? Justify your answers. Now, the one thing I really liked about last week, more than I've ever seen before, was a lot of you, for the 6 marker, picked a point on either side of the argument. So for this, I'd urge you to choose one reason why they should do it and one reason why they shouldn't. Because that's so different, it means you're going to definitely get marks for both sides. Some people use quite similar answers, and you don't get the second mark if the answers are quite similar. So I'd go either side of that argument, but you don't need to conclude. You just need to explain. Once you've done that, what I want you to do is think about how we can stop this. If we are unhappy, how can we stop it? And there are organisations called pressure groups. And what pressure groups do is put pressure on companies, organisations, governments to change what they do. So we've got a few here. We've got CAMRA, which is the Campaign for Real Ale. We've got the NEUT, I think that's NEA now, the National Education Association. We've got PETA, which is for animals, Camp for Climate Change, that wants to people to act on climate change, ASH, which is an anti-smoking group, Surfers Against Sewage, the SAS. There's a group of people that surf and don't want sewage in their sea. And then we've got the Rowers Against Thames Sewage, the RATS. What I want you to do is choose one of those pressure groups and research what they do, what they want, what they do, and then maybe evaluate, are they successful or not? So a nice little short introduction to business ethics there. Please feel free to do some research onto other areas of ethics. My favourite at the moment is talking about the right to repair. So should you be able to repair your own equipment? Now, Apple don't want you inside their machines at all. In fact, if you break the seal, you go in there, you've voided all warranty. And this becomes a bit of a problem. Like at the Embrook School, we've got Mr. Ward who fixes computers. Well, he might need to go into the computers to clean them after a couple of years and to get the dust out and such. But by the terms and conditions of Apple, you shouldn't do that. You void your warranty. So that becomes a bit of an issue. Surely we should be able to service our stuff. But then I understand where Apple are coming from. They want to either protect their intellectual property of how they put it together or make sure that they can guarantee the quality of the goods. If I went and tried to fix an iPod and I broke it, well, it's not Apple's fault, but it would look like Apple's fault. Anyway, that's an interesting one to look at if you're interested. Well done, guys. Great week. Remember to upload via Show My Homework. Take care.